Hey there, innovation champions. Melissa Dinwiddie here. I have a question for you. When you were a kid, did you ever experience a blackout or a hurricane, something that disrupted normal life for a bit? Maybe you had to go without electricity or without water for a day or two. Especially when you're a kid, if it's for a short time, that kind of thing can actually be almost like a forced vacation in a way. Actually, if you're an adult, it can be a forced vacation in a way because, you can't work because you have no power. And suddenly you have to do things in a new way. You have to think of new ways to do things that you normally do on autopilot, like lighting candles instead of reaching for a light switch, like digging in cupboards for a camping stove if you happen to have one, instead of using the range top or using the microwave. You have to get creative. And in the immediate aftermath, when all of your energy is focused on solving your immediate needs, you're firing on all cylinders. Your brain is really sharp. Your problem solving is laser focused. And somehow you find these really ingenious solutions that you never would have thought of under normal circumstances. But what happens when the emergency just keeps dragging on? That things start to change, right? Innovation thrives on pushing against challenges, but it does not thrive on burnout. Here's what I've learned working with tech teams over the past several years. The same pressure that initially sparks innovation can actually become its biggest enemy if we don't manage it properly. Think about it. In the early days of a crisis, whether it's a natural disaster or a business emergency, adrenaline kicks in and teams rally together. Hierarchy flattens as everyone focuses on the immediate problem. And people feel really empowered to try wild solutions because the usual rules don't apply. But crisis mode isn't sustainable. And here's where most organizations get it wrong. They try to maintain that crisis level intensity indefinitely, thinking that is the secret to sustained innovation. But it's not. It's a recipe for creative burnout. And I see this pattern repeatedly in the organizations that I work with. Teams start really strong during a crisis or a major challenge, but after months of maintaining that intensity, their most creative people become really exhausted. The constant pressure to innovate, paradoxically, kills their ability to innovate, and they get stuck in reactive mode. They're too depleted to think strategically or to imagine new possibilities. Does that sound familiar to you? Well, this is what I call the peak innovation paradox. The very conditions that create breakthrough innovation, urgency, pressure, resource constraints, those are also the same conditions that can destroy our capacity for sustained creativity if we don't understand how to work with them. So I like to think of it like physical fitness. A really challenging workout can actually make you stronger. That's actually what we need in order to become stronger. But if you never allow for recovery, then what's going to happen? You're eventually going to break down, and your innovation capacity works the same way. Now, the key is not to avoid pressure or challenges. Just like getting stronger, the way to get stronger is not to avoid those challenging workouts. It's not to avoid lifting weights. It's learning how to cycle through the pressure and challenges in a way that builds resilience rather than depleting it. And this is where my Create the Impossible framework becomes essential for maintaining creative momentum over the long haul. And if you have followed me at all, you know my Create the Impossible framework has 3 steps. So let's go through them. The first principle, play hard, is often the first thing that teams and individuals abandon when they're under pressure. We don't have time for play, they say. This is serious business. And believe me, I am not immune to this. That's what I tend to go to as well. But here's what neuroscience tells us. Play isn't the opposite of serious work. It's what makes serious work sustainable. When we are in constant crisis mode, our brains get stuck in what researchers call threat rigidity. We can only see this really narrow range of solutions. Usually, they're the ones that worked in the past. But play literally rewires our neural pathways, and it helps us see new possibilities and new connections. So imagine a team that's been grinding for months on a complex technical challenge. Everyone's really exhausted, tensions are high, and creative thinking has just flatlined. What if, instead of just pushing harder, they instituted something like Failure Fridays, spending just an hour every week sharing their biggest failures and turning them into learning opportunities, maybe even comedy skits. Now, it might sound frivolous when you're under pressure, but research shows that this kind of purposeful play can dramatically improve both innovation output and team retention. Now, the key is making play purposeful. I'm not talking about ping pong tables and bean bags, although, these can be nice, but it's about creating structured opportunities for mental recovery and perspective shifting. So that's step 1. The second principle from my Create the Impossible framework, make crap. I love that name because it always makes me laugh. Make crap becomes even more crucial when you're trying to maintain momentum over time. When teams are exhausted, perfectionism becomes their worst enemy. So picture a team that's been iterating on a product redesign for months. Every prototype has to be perfect before they'll show it to stakeholders. And the pressure is paralyzing them. They're spending more time polishing than innovating. So what if they instituted something like Ugly Tuesday? Just a weekly session where they have to present the ugliest, most half-baked version of their ideas. No PowerPoint slides, no polished mock-ups, just really rough sketches and really honest conversations about what they're trying to solve. This kind of systematic permission to be imperfect often unlocks rapid progress. When you remove the pressure to have everything polished, guess what? You free up mental energy for actual innovation instead of endless refinement. When you're managing creative momentum over time, you need to build in systematic permission to produce work that isn't ready for prime time. It's kind of like clearing the creative pipes. You have to get the mediocre ideas out before the brilliant ones can flow. Or as I like to say, we need the crap to fertilize the good stuff. So that's step 2, make crap. The third principle, learn fast, is what transforms short-term innovation spurts into sustained creative momentum. But here's the crucial distinction. Learning fast doesn't mean moving fast. It means extracting maximum insight from every experiment, every failure, every small success. Too many teams confuse activity with progress. They're constantly launching new initiatives, pivoting every month, chasing the next shiny opportunity. But they never slow down long enough to understand what's actually working and why. So imagine a scale up that's launching a new feature every 2 weeks. It sounds really impressive, right? But what if 80% of those features are barely being used? They'd be innovating fast, yeah, sure, but they're not learning fast. A better approach might be learning sprints. Every 2 weeks, instead of launching something new, the team does a deep dive on one recent launch. What worked? What didn't? What surprised them? And what would they do differently? This kind of systematic learning often reveals that sustainable innovation isn't about constant novelty. It's about building on what you discover works. So that's step 3. Here's what I've learned after watching countless teams try to maintain creative momentum. Innovation needs rhythm. It's not a marathon run at sprint pace. It's more like interval training. You need periods of intense focus and experimentation, followed by periods of reflection and consolidation. You need time to play and explore, followed by time to execute and refine. You need space to make crap, followed by time to polish the gems that you've discovered. And most importantly, you need to treat your creative capacity like the renewable resource it is. It can be depleted, but it can also be restored if you understand how to work with it rather than against it. The teams that maintain creative momentum over years, not just months, are the ones that have learned to cycle through the Create the Impossible framework deliberately and systematically. They don't just play hard when they feel like it, they schedule it. They don't just make crap when they're stuck, they build it into their process. And they don't just learn fast when they fail, they extract insights from every experience. So here's your challenge for this week. Take a step back and assess the rhythm of innovation in your team or organization. Are you trying to maintain crisis level intensity indefinitely? Are you giving your team permission to play, to experiment, to learn from imperfection? Look at your calendar. Where are the built-in recovery periods? Where are the scheduled times for exploration and experimentation? When was the last time someone on your team was celebrated for an interesting failure rather than just successful outcomes? Remember, peak innovation isn't about reaching maximum intensity and staying there. It's about finding the sustainable rhythm that keeps your creative momentum flowing over time. And in our AI-driven world, where change is the only constant, the ability to maintain creative momentum isn't just a nice to have, it's your competitive advantage. The companies that thrive aren't the ones that burn brightest for a moment, but the ones that can sustain their innovative fire year after year. Ready to build sustainable innovation into your organization's DNA? Click the link in the description to book a complimentary innovation strategy session. Let's explore how the Create the Impossible framework can help you maintain creative momentum without burning out your most valuable innovators. If you found these insights about sustainable innovation valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of innovation champions. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a new strategy for driving creativity and innovation in your work. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this topic. Have you experienced both sustainable innovation practices and burnout-inducing pressure? What helped your team maintain creative momentum during challenging times? Or maybe you've discovered your own rhythm for balancing intensity and recovery. Share your insights in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay playful, and keep creating the impossible. See you next time. Ciao.